Well, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Pastor, you said that song didn't really fit in tonight's service, but you have no idea just how well it fits. It seems like every song, every testimony, and every word spoken tonight is fit perfect. It's amazing. If you will, turn with me to Romans chapter 9, verse 32. Romans 9 and 32 says, "Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law, for they stumbled at that stumbling stone." Jesus, I pray that you would anoint your word, anoint your vessel to give a good word. God, I just pray that your message comes through clearly and touches and changes our hearts. In Jesus' name. Y'all can be seated. I want to talk to you tonight about turning your stumbling stones into building blocks.
All right.
A stumbling stone, by definition, is anything that leads to sin. A stumbling stone is anything that's in your way that causes you to trip up and go down a different path.
All right.
It's anything that, it's like walking in the dark and you can't see. Your kids have left their toys all out in the hallway and you just got to make it to the bathroom.
Come on.
You wind up tripping and turning around. The next thing you know, you're back in front of your bedroom and you don't know where you're at. It's a stumbling stone. It's something that has come against you. It's something that has harmed you and made you go in a different direction.
All right.
Hallelujah, Jesus.
I've come to think that there are 5 major categories of stumbling stones. There's physical. There are financial, emotional, social, and outside force. Physical stumbling stone would be like a handicap,
All
a disability, or a lack of physical skill. I can say from myself that I've never been very good at sports. I've never been one that was very coordinated. I lack that physical skill. Now, if you give me something heavy, I've got plenty of brute force. I can tear stuff up and I can break it. But when it comes to the delicate things, as simple as putting a basketball into a hoop, you don't want me on your team. I lack that physical skill. I would be a stumbling stone to the whole team.
All right.
Then you've got, I can't really go out and get certain jobs. I've got I don't want to call it a disability because it doesn't disable me. But I've got scoliosis. I've got a problem with my back. So certain jobs I cannot go and get. It puts a little bit of a stumbling stone on what all I can do.
All right.
And then you've got handicaps. Pretty much the same thing as disabilities. But you see, I've worked in a fabrication plant, picking up heavy pipes. I've worked in manufacturing, and I made it up in my mind that nothing was going to stop me from doing what I had to do. If a job is put before me, I'm going to do it, no matter how much pain it's going to give me. I got to thinking about someone historically who had a physical stumbling stone. And the first person that came to my mind was one of my favorite musicians in this entire world. He was born to a musician father. He fell in love with music, and at a very young age, he picked up on it very well. He was a prodigy. He began writing songs at a very young age, and he was very well known. But then, as early as his 20s, he began to lose his hearing. And the one thing that he loved the most, he couldn't enjoy it with his physical skills anymore. It wasn't there. He couldn't, but by his late 20s, he couldn't hear at all. But you see that love for music was still in his heart. You see, he could have easily said, I'm not gonna do anything else. I'm gonna let this stop me right here in my tracks, and I'm not gonna move forward. The one thing that gives me more joy and more pleasure than anything in this world is creating music. So he said, this gift that God gave me, I'm going to continue to share it. I'm going to continue to use it. I'm not just going to throw it away. So although by the time he made it to his late 20s, he could hardly hear at all. Some historians say he could not hear the music that he made. But yet he made works such as Symphony No. 9. The man I'm talking about is Beethoven. I guarantee you, if you played the entire Symphony No. 9, there would not be a person here who would not recognize some part of it today. And this was many, many, many years ago. All because he decided that he was not going to allow his disability to stop him.
All right.
That's right. Yes.
Come on.
It's hard to talk about it now, but I knew someone who went blind. She couldn't see a thing, but she said it wasn't going to stop her. You see, when she went blind, I really believe that when she went blind, it caused her not to be able to see someone, but it made her see so much more.
That's right.
She was able to love people so much more because she said, although I'm blind, I'm not going to give up.
That's right.
I'm not going to step down. This isn't going to stop me. This isn't going to be a stumbling stone. You see, she took that stone, just like Beethoven, they took that thing and they used it as a stone, as a foundation to build on.
Come on.
You see, had Beethoven not ever gone deaf, he probably wouldn't have tried as hard as he did, and 4 of his most famous songs never would have been wrote.
All right.
You see, he had to try so hard because the only way physically he could enjoy the music was through vibration. He heard it in his heart, but only through vibration could he enjoy it. So he had to try harder and harder. Because it came from just his heart,
Yes.
it was so much better. Moving on, we've got financial stumbling stones, lack of funds, or just bad stewardship.
All right.
I can honestly say I'm a victim of one of them. But we oftentimes will, well, I would give to this or that, but I just don't have the money. We'll be praying and God says, give this amount to this person or to this situation. And we tell God, I just don't have it. I got to pay my rent. And so finances become a stumbling stone to us. It becomes something that stops us from doing the will of God.
Right.
Again, I tried to find someone, and the man that I thought about, he started as a farmer with no money. He happened to make it through high school. He worked at a little convenience store, and he wound up going off to the military. He comes back from the military, and the military gives him $5,000. He goes to work at that same convenience store, and over time, he winds up with a loan. He buys that convenience store. It's just a little bitty old nickel and dime store. It's nothing. It's little bitty, but he was able to get it.
All right.
And again, he had the attitude, I'm not going to give up. I may have just been some old farmer boy with no money, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to let that situation stop me.
Come on.
And so he took that and he coupled it with his desire to help people, and he ends up creating a chain in a short amount of time that is now known as one of the biggest stores in the world. Walmart. Sam Walton took little to nothing financially and said, it's not going to stop me. I have a desire to save money. I have a desire to help people. That's what Walmart used to be. But I have a desire to do this, and I'm not going to let anything stop me. You've got other people that they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They can do whatever they want to, and then they start a business and it flops. It's because the desire is not there. They don't fall in love with it.
That's it. Come on.
You see, if we love God the way that we are supposed to, nothing would stop us from giving to these things. When we make a pledge, it's not going to be anything for us to pay it because it's the first thing on our mind. When it comes time to pay our tithes, oh, it's already, the check's written. It's already taken care of.
Right. Come on. That's good.
When it comes time to put money in the offering plate, we've already made up in our mind that the church needs funds. They got to pay a light bill. And it's not that hard to put it. I can't not tell you how many times I've taken money out of my pocket, and it'll be the last dollar that I have. I put it in the offering plate, and I promise you I've not missed a meal. My lights have never been turned off. My car's ran out of gas, but that's because of my own stupidity. But see, the thing is, I've never gone without what I needed. I've never missed what I needed as long as I gave to God.
All right.
But we have to be careful not to let it be a stumbling stone. You've got emotional stumbling stones. You've got hurt feelings,
Yeah.
unconfident, and then arrogant. Oh, somebody said something about my shirt, and I didn't like it. Someone don't like the way I'm dressed, and I don't feel comfortable going there.
Come on.
Come on with it.
I don't have that nice fine suit. I don't have those nice fine clothes, so I don't want to get up and do what God told me to do. I don't look the way the rest of everybody else looks, so I don't want to do what God told me to do.
Come on.
Unconfident. What are people going to think about me? I'm going to embarrass myself. I don't want to do that, God. I don't want to get up and run. I don't want to jump. I don't want to do what you're telling me to do. I'm not confident enough. Who am I to get up and preach to people? Who am I to get up and tell people the way to live?
Come on.
And then you've got people that are arrogant. This is the way it's going to have to be. I'm the best that there is, and no one can do better than me. That's what makes an empty church.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Exactly right.
But it's the same thing with unconfidence. If we don't do what God's telling us to do, if we allow our emotions to lead our life, that's what's going to happen. Our lives are going to be empty. Too many times there are people out there. When I was out in the world, I had a favorite comedian. And I never knew it, but he was suffering from depression. He was suffering from suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies. But to me, he was one of the funniest people in the world. He loved going to hospitals dressed up with a red nose on, and I forget the name of it. But he loved going to hospitals and making children smile. And he said, although I'm dying inside, although I feel awful, although I hate myself, I've got to make other people feel good. And although we all know what happened to Robin Williams, I believe had he been in church, he wouldn't have done what he done. But you see, he had a desire desire to do what he did. He had a desire to make people smile. He wasn't going to let his emotions stop him. He wasn't going to let what someone said stop him from going into that hospital and making children smile the day before they died. That's just what type of person he was. How many times, Pastor, have you came to the church and someone has hurt your feelings and you didn't feel like preaching? You've had a bad day. You don't feel like worshiping. You don't feel like lifting your hands. Pastor's the only one here that knows today I've had a horrible day. An awful day. I got terrible news. But that's not going to stop me.
Come on.
Because you know what? That news doesn't matter. I can't be upset about that news. I can't allow that news to be a stumbling stone to me. You see, if I'll take that stone and I'll keep on building. I'll keep on building. Finally, I got to thinking about social. And the only person I could think of when it came to social stumbling stone was Moses. You see, Moses was once like a prince. He was well known. He had jewels all over him. He was strong. He was well about himself. Everybody knew him. If he spoke, everybody listened. But then one day he finds out that he's Jewish. He finds out he's an Israelite. And he finds out the very people that are enslaved are his people. And he goes out and he observes as a slave master is beating one of his kin. And he strikes out. And he kills him. And so he buries him, and he comes back the next day hoping nobody knows anything. And it causes him, someone says something to him, and it causes him to run into the desert. He's in the desert for 40 years. All kinds of changes take place, and he's got a stutter now. No one knows him anymore. This is 40 years difference. No one knows what he looks like. No one has seen him in a long time. So he hasn't talked to his friends in Egypt. I'm pretty sure they don't want to talk to him. But you see, God chooses him and tells him, go and set my people free. But God, why me? Why would you choose me, someone who can't say his words right, who can't communicate with people? Why me? I'm nobody. No one knows who I am. Why are they going to listen to me? So God gives him a staff, and he gives him someone to help him talk, and he gives him examples, and he tells him to tell Pharaoh, I am that I am. He gives him power.
Yeah.
And we know the story. Moses doesn't give up. He continues to go day after day after day, plague after plague after plague, until the people are set free. Socially, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. I would just be worrying that one person that saw me kill that other person would be there, and I would just want to run back out into the desert. That one thing that we do wrong that makes us feel like we're outcasts, that no one wants to be around us anymore, if we'll stop letting that be a stumbling stone.
Come on.
I've come to find out too many times when we do something wrong and it hurts somebody, they'll forgive us, but we never forgive ourselves. Too many times we allow it, we become socially awkward in a situation and around these people because we think that they hate us. But in truth, we hate what we did. We hate ourselves.
Come on.
If we would just let that go and stop allowing that to stop us, what could we do? The last form or last category of a stumbling stone, what I would say would be an outside force. And I couldn't get away from it. I wanted to talk about Job or talk about the woman with the issue of blood or something with that or anything else, but God wouldn't let me get away from David. And it's so perfect. David and his men are out They just got done talking with the Philistines, and the Philistines don't want them to go to war with them, if I read it correctly. Because David used to slay tens of thousands of them. So why would they want him on their side? That's all fine and good. David says, I understand. He and his men go back home. They get to Ziklag, and everybody is gone. Their wives are gone. Their children are gone. They have nothing left. You can take my house. You can take my car. You can take all the money I have, everything that I own. But you take my wife and children, that's what really happens. And so the people felt the same way. And so the people were ready to kill David.
Yeah.
But David had a different attitude. David said, I'm not going to let this trip me up. I know I'm anointed to be king. I know what God has promised me. So I'm not going to let this trip me up.
Come on.
David said, bring me the ephod. Let me worship God. Let me touch God for just a moment. And because of that, God tells him to pursue. He pursues, and not only do they get everybody back, but they kill everyone who took their wives, who took their children. Too many times we allow outside forces to take things from us, and we just give up. Our children are taken away. Our spouses are taken away, and we just give up and we let them stay where they're at because they wanted to be there is what we think. Too many times we lose things because of outside forces, and we say, well, God doesn't love me because this person left. God doesn't love me, so why don't I just give up? These things become a stumbling stone. But God promises in Romans 8:28 that he will work all things for the good. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God and them who are called according to his purpose. Whatever that stumbling stone is in your life, whatever that thing is that's stopping you from worshiping God, why don't you just take it and examine it for just a minute? Stop living within that moment and within that situation, and let's try to get outside of it for just a minute. You feel like you're in sinking sand, and there's nothing that you can do about it. You feel yourself getting lower and lower, and everything that around you is just suffocating you. But see, if you'll take that sand and you'll put a little bit of Jesus in it, a little bit of the everlasting water, if you'll put a little bit of Jesus in it and mix it up like concrete, you'll take those situations and you'll stack them together. You'll have a foundation. And now you've got a rock to stand on. Now you've got a little bit of something that you're not sinking anymore. Those situations are in the past, and who's ever heard the saying, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger? Those situations that you thought were going to overtake you, now you've got a little bit of something to stand on. But it doesn't just stop when you get into church. It doesn't just stop when you obey Acts 2:38. It's not over with then. That's not the end of it. Because as soon as you're standing on a strong foundation, then it feels like everything's coming from the left and coming from the right. It feels like the enemy's trying to shoot arrows at your chest and shoot you in the back. And every time you turn around, there's something else coming at you. And so the devil's doing everything that he can to trip you up. Musician can come. But in Mark 12:10, it tells us that Jesus is the cornerstone. Jesus is that stone that the builders rejected. You see, we would be living in a different world today if the founders, if the builders, if the lawmakers had have said, yes, this is Jesus. This is the way. But they rejected it. I can just imagine the world right now if they hadn't accepted Jesus. It would be completely different. But you see, if we take that stone and we begin to stack them up, those situations, and as long as God is in the center, we begin to stack up those stumbling stones, eventually we're going to have a wall. Eventually we're going to have protection. Eventually those things that are coming from the left and from the right won't be able to get to us anymore. Those stumbling stones have done made us into a tower, and we've got something to protect us. And so the next situation that comes along, we already know how to take care of it. When our neighbor over there is sitting in stinking sand, we know to go over and tell him, hey, I've already been in this situation. I know what you're going through. I've lived this life. Let me give you a little bit of help. Let me help you stir in a little bit of Jesus. Let me help you build. My wife was singing, let it rain. Let it rain. If that's what it takes, God, for us to get in your will, let it rain. If it takes situations coming against us and tearing us down for us to be what we need to be, let it rain. Let it come against us. Let those stones come against us. As long as we're turning them over and we're stacking them together, as long as we're using them to build. You see, the one thing that the devil hates the worst is when you take the situation that he threw at you to tear you down and you use it to build yourself up. Those promises that the devil's telling you it's never going to happen. The doctor report says it's never going to happen. Your family is telling you it's never going to happen. Just give up. If you'll take those and you say, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep on striving. I'm not going to stop because God gave me a promise. What's your family going to say about your faith when it happens? What kind of influence are you going to have when it comes true? When that blessing comes through and they're sitting there and all those stones that they've thrown at you, now you're standing on a podium in front of them. Now you're standing up higher than them and you can say, look what my Jesus did. But we got to learn to take our stumbling stones and turn them into building blocks. We got to take those things that are meant to tear us down, to harm us, and to kill us. And we got to do something with them. These altars are open. Again, the verse says that he will do all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. I want to ask you tonight, do you love him? Do you love him enough to give him those situations? Do you love him enough to turn around to those situations and say, my God is bigger. My promises are bigger. Do you love him tonight?